friends. Welcome back to Random Gleanings. He's Chris, I'm Jesse, and today we're going to cover three topics. We're going to hit home prices, where those stand, kind of look again at inflation, and then also, you know, you've probably heard some about this debt ceiling debate, and so we're going to give some initial thoughts on that today as well.
Yep.
So, Chris, take it away with home prices.
Yeah, so we got a surprise home prices up, breaking a 7-month streak. This was as of this morning in terms of that announcement. And it's not that surprising, actually, to me. Here's a tweet from Brian Sullivan at CNBC about a buddy putting his house. This is from 5 days ago. Buddy puts his house up in New Jersey for $1.3 million. Realtor tells him 1.5, and he reluctantly agrees. 36 hours, it's off the market for $1.86 million. Supply, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's what we talked about with Jamie a couple weeks ago, which is supply and demand. Those things work out in all facets across anything that people want, and that's certainly the case here with housing right now.
And of course, if you're paying cash, it doesn't matter. There are a lot of places. I mean, if people are migrating to the Southeast at all, I mean, presumably with a lower per foot cost, not that New Jersey's the Southeast, but I mean, if people are buying, you know, and there's limited supply, that's what it looks like. It's not done. It doesn't appear to be over to me.
That is true.
And I think that's an issue. Next topic. So here's Bob Elliott, who was CIO of Bridgewater, Ray Dalio's hedge fund for years. Smart guy. Not been much durable progress made bringing inflation down. Core inflation momentum to start 23 does not indicate a swift return to 2% anywhere in the developed world. Instead, we seem to be stabilizing rough order 5%. Central banks have a lot more work to do. Obviously, that's his opinion. But when you look at the next chart, which shows core inflation, here's what he's talking about in orange. If you annualize the 3-month numbers, the U.S., Europe, Japan, Canada, Australia, I mean, those numbers are higher than the 6-month annualized numbers. I mean, they're going up.
Which indicates, that there was, you know, some slowdown over the last 6 months, but that it's picked back up again. I think that housing price thing is really kind of alarming because much has been said, at least for those of us that pay, you know, the detail to the granular stuff, that housing will work itself out by lowering inflation over a long period of time.
Right? And that it's on its way down and it's going to get better. Well,
not if it doesn't get better.
Right. So, I mean, again, anecdotally, you go out, I mean, you see it everywhere. You go out anywhere and everywhere's full. It's all full.
Yeah.
So it hadn't happened yet. We've talked a lot about the labor mismatch, the number of open jobs versus the unemployment rate. You know, I hate to say it. I mean, obviously you don't want anyone to suffer, but until that's fixed, I don't think the Fed's done. And these numbers just prove it.
Well, I think it's not only that, and again, we're not rooting for layoffs by any means, but that is when the rubber hits the road in regards to people stopping spending.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Or banks stop lending business, and that gets kind of messy. So we'll see if that bears itself out at all.
Right.
Next chart. So this is a chart we pulled. Just going back. You know, you think about the late 90s, you think about 2000 and 2001. I've made mention once or twice that this reminds me of 2000, this time period of dropping multiples, stuff like that. You know, we haven't had in 26 years. I mean, for 26 years, CPI was under 3%.
I was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know a world at as an adult plus 3%, except for the last, whatever it's been, 12 months, right?
So everybody's got either an Android or an iPhone now. I mean, the efficiency that we have reached from a technological standpoint is really pretty amazing. So the big question I have personally, I've talked with you a lot about this, you're probably tired of hearing about it, is, you know, has the technological efficiency side of things, or at least the main course of that, really run its course? I'm starting to read some things about artificial intelligence being like the next deflationary driver for technology. It'll be interesting to see if that happens, right? Mm-hmm. But at this point, we still have a 3.5% roughly unemployment rate. So Well,
I think what's very interesting that you brought up here in the last day or two is the add-on effect of free trade in this time period.
Right. I mean, keep in mind that NAFTA was back during the same time period that the technological efficiencies of email. I mean, I started work in 1995. There was, at least in our office in the Southeast, there was not email on the desk at that point. I mean, it wasn't until 97, 98-ish that there was email on the desk. So, I mean, and that was hitting at the same time NAFTA was going on. So, the big question, as we've sort of had some, dust-ups with China, for example, is what does free trade look like? I mean, if they continue down their path, I mean, that's inflationary.
It will be inflationary. That's exactly right. So, despite maybe some of the prognostications about, hey, this inflation thing's healing itself, to Bob Elliott's point,
it's not all over.
The core
yet.
is not showing that,
Right.
that it's there, and that goes back to the topic that you've talked about a lot, which is the services and the job side of things.
So let's change the subject and look at our buddy Representative McCarthy here. We've got a debt ceiling debate that seems to be coming up pretty quickly.
We sure do.
One of the big questions that we, of course, wanted to make sure to address for the public is, and our clients, of course, is what's happened historically to treasuries when U.S. Treasury bonds, when the debt ceiling debate goes into question. Because presumably, I mean, the concern is, well, they can't pay their debt anymore, right? But let's look at what happens, because that's generally been considered the safest place on the planet.
Now, so take that, right? Understand the debt ceiling debate means that the government, if they default, they can't pay their debts, right? Well, the very last time that they got to the edge of this debt ceiling debate was back in the summer of 2011.
That's right. The Tea Party did not want them to increase the debt ceiling.
That's right. So let's just look from August 1st to the end of the year of 2011. All right. And in this chart, the purple and blue line are treasury bonds.
Long-term treasury bonds. Long-duration treasury bonds.
Right.
Talking about 20, 25, 30-year bonds.
So in 5 months, those instruments
they were up
unbelievable returns, right?
Correct.
And the S&P was down slightly over that same period. The interesting thing to me there is that debt got downgraded at that same time.
Right.
But against what? Is the U.S. was still the best credit in the world, and so rates went down. People were buying that out of concern, and sure enough, it did really, really well.
So if you go back and look, next chart at the entire year, what you can see is that, I mean, for the year, equities were roughly flat and bonds actually were up in value for the year. And also, interestingly, if you just look at January until effectively where we are right now, end of April 2011, stocks were up about 8.5%. Bonds were basically flat as a pancake. Kind of interestingly, Jesse, if we look at this year,
that's just it. The S&P is up roughly 8% through yesterday, and bonds, while having done better than they did in 11, are underperforming the S&P. So this is not meant to be predictive. They say, history doesn't repeat itself; it rhymes. And I just heard recently, history rhymes with mystery. So that's what will play out for the rest of the year. But as an analog to a time frame in which you think, the U.S. is going to throw us into a disastrous situation, why would I own anything U.S.? The interesting thing to me is those very bonds that the Treasury has to pay on. Did super well coming out of that environment.
Yeah. I mean, anytime there's a flight to quality and a flight to assets you want to hold during fearful times, they've done well for sure. And, we've kind of thought year to date that beginning to own some of those pieces, both as the Fed continues to try to torque on inflation, as well as and slow the economy, which generally means things start breaking or doing poorly, that's a good time to be in safe assets.
Fleet equality.
Right. Correct. It just seemed like a good time to be talking about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I will just mention this before we close. big earnings week this week. We did not touch on that, but some of the big tech giants are reporting this week. You'll hear us talk about that, I'm sure, next week. Hard to kind of anticipate what exactly happens, but have you got anything else?
Yeah, I mean, regional banks still are a big kicker for me. Paying attention to KRE, we're sitting today down about 2.25%, and we are sitting right on that 52-week
right on the
low.
lows. Yeah.
You know, Chairman Powell made a comment about how banks may do some of the work for them in terms of
tightening liquidity, slowing the economy. Right.
Yeah. I mean, they're sitting at the bottom of their earnings chart. So, I mean, you have to think that could come home to roost at some point. I say you have to. You don't have to. But, I mean, at the moment, it doesn't look like mission accomplished or coast is clear is going to be the banner flying just yet.
Agreed.
That's all I got. You?
No, I got nothing else.
Thanks as always for watching. We're grateful to you. Please do click the subscribe button. Click the bell if you'd like to be notified when we post. Please do share. This information is pertinent. It's timely. As you can see, I mean, April 25th was one of the graphics we had in there. So, and today is April 25th. So, thanks a bunch for watching. We'll talk to you soon.